Have you ever questioned yourselves as to what makes a story interesting? Or how a poem appeals greatly to you? How does a book of literature brings meaning to you? What? Hello students, welcome to English Tutorials. I'm Hardik Thakkar, a faculty of English department at St. Xavier's College, Ahmedabad. Today we are going to understand formalism. So before we understand what formalism is, let us understand something which is very important. Due to the science and technological advancement in the 20th century, every discipline started questioning its own process and production. This is what is called scientific inquiry into the field. The same was happening with the language and literature. Language was never questioned before 20th century, as how does it create meanings? Since everything required proof to prove itself, to validate itself to the demand of the age, the field of language and literature was no exception to it. This approach was against the writer-poet genius approach of the Romantic age. This was a paradigm shift. A paradigm shift from the poet to poem, from the writer to text, from the creator to creation, from the producer to product. Therefore, a well-known critic and a professor, I. Richards, called his students to analyze numerous poems without letting them know their poets' names. As a result, the students found much difficulty in analyzing the poems without knowing its writers. And finally, they had to analyze dealing with the technical aspects of the poems like meter, rhyme, intonation, tone, stress, and rhythms. From this example, you can imagine the level of scientific inquiries into literature this era has witnessed. Now let us understand what formalism is. Formalism is a critical approach or a practice of analyzing an artwork focusing on its form and technical aspects without considering any external aspects of the work. This approach took place in the early 20th century in Russia. It was greatly inspired by Ferdinand de Saussure's writings and the French symbolist movement. This practice of formalism was originally started by a group of scholars who named it Russian formalism. This group or school included scholars like Victor Slavskis, Roman Jakobson, Victor Ehrlich, Yuri Tainian. This critical approach opposed to sociological criticism like Marxist or feminist criticism. It too excluded any biographical or historical aspects of the text or art creation. Formalists were more interested in how a text generates meanings. Is it the grammatical aspects of a literary work, or is it a syntactic pattern followed in the text that generates literariness? They were in short more interested in dealing with literary devices like flashback, analogy, etc., through which writers used to create spatial effects in their writing to create freshness. In their writing, this freshness, in the terms of formalist, named as the technique of defamiliarization. According to this, writers try to create an effect through which a familiar and known incident or object turns into unfamiliar and unknown, thereby creating a novelty in a work which appeals to readers and create interest in the work. Victor Slavsky, a well-known scholar of this school, has shown his critical approach by defining a difference between a story and a plot. According to him, a story is a way of narration, is a way of narrating incidents which take place in its chronological order, whereas a plot is a way of narrating a story with a spatial effect incurred through the use of literary devices. For Slavsky, the jouet means plot is the fabula means story defamiliarized. In 1929, when in the Soviet Russia, this practice was criticized for not supporting the political agenda, the practitioner of this group had to move out of Russia. Especially Roman Jakobson went to Czechoslovakia and formed a group and started his practice under the Prague Linguistic Circle. Later on, he went to America along with René Velek in 1940s and continued his practice there. After 1940s, in America, there came another group of critics who in their practice adopted a formalist practice of analyzing texts, especially poems. This group came to be known as New Critics and their practice New Criticism. However, this group adopted a stylistic approach for analyzing their text. The New Critics regarded the language and poetic diction as the most important for their analysis. This group includes John Prue Ransom, I. Richards, William Emerson, T.S. Eliot, Alan Tubb, Clint Brook. T.S. Eliot's tradition and the individual talents and the metaphysical poets contributed much in canonizing the metaphysical poets like John Donne. His essays on Hamlet and his problems give a theory of objective correlative, which refers to the objective and scientific approach of seeing literary product by the New Criticism. Another formalist movement, Chicago School of Criticism, also known as Neo-Aristotelianism, started in 1930s, which partially opposed the New Criticism in their approach of criticism. Neo-Aristotelianism brought the Aristotelian concept of plot construction, characters, and genre for analyzing the text. Unlike the New Critics, who only focused on the aspects of language and literary devices, which according to Chicago critics are small parts of any text. This group included the scholars like R.S. Crane, Alec Olson, Norman MacLean, W.R. Keats, and Y.N.C. Booth. However, this school lasted in 1950s. Formalism was a pejorative term given by Soviet Union to the groups of scholars practicing criticism, excluding the role of human society for construction of art creation. In the heart of formalist criticism, language plays a major role. It is not content, but the way of presenting the content matters much to the formalist. In other words, it is not what, but how is the center of focus for formalist. This objective and obsessive analysis by formalist was once criticized by T.S. Eliot as a lemon squeezing practice of criticism. The formalist practice contributed a lot in narratology and stylistic criticism, but in the present time, in the midst of social, political, gender, cultural, historical, and ecological theories, I think we are missing a literary text in its originality. Somewhere we are missing art for art's sake. By analyzing any text, we have produced and overproduced a lot of critical materials, but we have missed the charm and pleasure of a text. I think we need to be sensible enough to think in that direction too. Well, that was all about formalism. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Thank you for watching.